Well, we've heard about the magic that is, you know, in the cosmos, and we've heard just now about the fantastic magic that we can starting to tap into and understand how we can relate to better in the oceans. I want to bring us back to the magic of being human, and I want to remind us all that actually we as a species can be magnificent just as we can be nightmares. And I want to talk about how we are capable as a species of finding brilliant solutions to things simply by living our lives differently, by not being in awe of not being able to find an E equals MC squared that can help us live within planetary boundaries, and that if we learn to collaborate and trust each other more, we can actually move mountains. So the story of this is how a group of people, 15, 16, whenever it was, I'm getting really old, years ago, decided that they were going to use the Trojan horse of food to demonstrate to ordinary folks how they can live their lives more kindly, more connected, more confidently. A movement for everybody. A movement that has a watchword of, if you eat, you're in. A movement that is trying to say to folks, don't be frightened and paralysed by the big issues that are stopping so many people actually see a positive future. Look within yourself and see what you can actually do to create something and demonstrate a positive, hopeful alternative through the power of small actions around food. So, here's the story. It's just one story. For those that have heard it before, I'm really sorry about it because, you know, the story is the story. But fundamentally, it's a story of ordinary folks in the place you call home, because if you're going to start a little bit of a revolution in your own right, start with your own doorstep, your own streets, your own neighbours, your own village, your own town, your own borough, whatever it is. Don't pass the buck to somebody else. Don't be a victim. Please recognise you're a solution finder and do something about it. So in the place I call home, which is Todmorden, it's a market town in the north of England. It's sort of equidistant between Manchester and Leeds, if anybody knows it. It's about 15,000 people. It's got all the issues that you can see there. You know, it rains quite a lot. Sheep blow over in a wind. Quite often, you know, it's got folks who feel really negative about themselves. They don't have a pride of place. They've got all the issues that we have nationally around health and well-being. But it's the place you call home. So what can you do to change what that looks like? And what we did was woke up one morning and just went out there and planted food in very public places without asking permission, just doing it, putting great signs up there, making it food to share, and starting the conversations. We call those things propaganda gardens, by the way, because the woman that I started this with, Mary Clear, didn't like the idea of guerrilla gardening because it felt too much filled of testosterone. So we thought we'd have gardens where you could chat about. And these are propaganda gardens that, as I say, you just wake up in the morning, you look at an unlived bit of street where you are, a grass verge or whatever it is, and you start to plant food in it. And that, can I just say, right at the beginning, don't bother asking for permission. Because the problem with asking permission is it makes people feel really negative about themselves, because a local authority has to then write a report that then goes to a committee that then goes to some councillors who then want some more information. And by the time you've wasted months and months and months, the answer is no. So don't make people feel guilty. Just get up and plant food in very public places and see where you go. Because actually, you're going to go to some amazing places. The serendipity around it is going to be gobsmacking. You wouldn't believe the number of magical people there are out there if you just crack on with doing stuff, not talking about it. So you don't need a report. You don't need a strategy document. You don't need any of that lot. And you don't even need a lottery bid to start it with. You just need to get up there and stop whinging and start doing. And the reason you're actually doing that... The reason you're actually doing that was, well, I mean, where is the leadership in this planetary crisis we've got? Where is the leadership in rethinking food systems? Where is the leadership about all the things that matter in our everyday lives? Well, it's not there. So given that it's not there and we're not going to whinge, we'll just find our own form of leadership. And I kicked this whole thing off 15 years ago because I'd been in a meeting in London where Tim Lang, if anybody knows, a real forward thinker in terms of food policy, was talking about the state of the planet 15 years ago. And we all know that it's much more at the forefront of our minds now, even though we still don't have the leadership. I'm old enough to have been a council leader in the days when it was the Rio Earth Summit. Oh, good, I thought. Fantastic. That's brilliant. They're all going to get their shit together and they're going to change their policies and investment. What happened? Well, we had Rio, and we had Kyoto, and we had Copenhagen, and we had Paris, and we had Glasgow, and we're still on a hide into nothing. So, fundamentally, let's just not do anything. Tomorrow morning, Newcastle, Gateshead, everywhere in the northeast, get up and start planting food. Now, in order to actually tell a story, it's not kind of like complete chaos. There is a model underpinning this. And it's a very, very simple model, because I got on a train in London after I'd heard Tim Lang talking about the state of the planet, having realised I'm either going to get drunk all the time or I'm actually going to tell a story that helps people think that they are part of a solution. And I'm sitting on that train, and I'm thinking, what can we actually do? Well, obviously, the unifying language that inspires everybody to get connected is food, because we all have something to do with it, whether we like it or we don't. We cook it or we grow it. We buy it or... Food is... It cuts across age, income, culture, and ability. So food is obviously what we're going to do. But we're also going to do 3 things, and it has to be only 3 things. It could have been 11 things. It could have been really complicated, but I only had a virgin serviette, and that's very small, which is why it's only 3 spinning plates. And the first play is get up in the morning and plant food in public places. Don't plant it where nobody can see it. Plant it somewhere at the front, where it was an unloved space. And if you've got a mate who doesn't know how to plant, then get them to do a fantastic sign, because it's not all about knowing how to grow. I don't know how to grow. This isn't about me becoming the chair of the Royal Horticultural Society. This is about me trying to motivate people to do something different in their lives. So planting those community spaces, planting those propaganda gardens, putting those signs up there, telling people what they can do with them, that's the first thing. You start to change the look of the place you call home. The second thing you do is recognise nobody's ever taught you how to do that, certainly in my part of the world. So find those people who know how to grow, who know how to cook, to pickle, to bottle, to graft. Have a chat with someone in your street, or put something out there on social media and say, who knows how to make rhubarb and ginger cordial or whatever else it might be, and somebody will get back to you. The learning is really important, because we start to talk to people who have got skill sets that we never spoke to before. We start to meet people who have come to our shores from all over the world, who have got skill sets around agriculture and growing, but nobody's ever bothered to put them at the forefront of the community so that they can share those. We've got all manner of people who've been underground, coal mining, God knows what, who, what did they do when they came up? They grew the best tomatoes that you could possibly... Talk to people like that, and suddenly, not only are you growing food, not only are you getting more active, but you're starting to extend that conversation in a community, which is the very heart of feeling that together you can make change. And the third thing is, this isn't all about growing cabbages. This is about creating a new norm around food. Inspiring people to become the next generation of urban growers. Inspiring people to understand that the STEAM subjects are at the heart of our future food systems. That we need engineers and technologists, and we need artists, and all these people coming together around the place they call home to create an alternative proposition around food. And it's not about food policy from the government, it's about how we live our lives and share food justice from a grassroots. And the amazing thing is, this isn't all bullshit, basically, because it actually works. Fundamentally, it changes spaces. These are people in the middle of Bristol who were working with their local authority, planting in the middle of Bristol, showing people how to do it. People in Ulverston, in a dark, dirty little alley, working out for themselves without permission what would grow in dark places that were a little bit wet and how they could share that food. On the seafront at Bute, on housing estates in Wakefield, all over the health sector in Lambeth. These are places where communities have come together to start changing their spaces. They're not growing food. They are becoming the next urban planners. Add to that the fact they're having influence in their schools by what their kids are being taught. Add to that, you're getting people walking year in and year out past an edible landscape, thinking about, hey, I could get a job with this. We could be what you're doing. You know, we could actually imagine that I could bring aquaponics into the global south in order that I can help more people feed themselves. This is about inspiring the next generation of food producers, processors, and users. But fundamentally, that's what we did in the Creek. That's what we've done for 15 years, all over the place. 150 groups all over the UK doing it in a wild and wonderful way. Lots of people. We're really big in Japan, apparently, at the moment. I've done a front page on a newspaper there. I don't know what they're saying, because I don't read Japanese, but it all looks terribly friendly. But the bottom line of it all is, from this grassroots buzz of a conversation, we are here, we are proof of concept. You can trust people to do something differently. You can trust people to build a kind of world. So come on, influencers, come on, public sector, come on, anchor institutions, come on, major privates. Help us make that happen. Be two hands clapping, please, because we haven't got much time left to live in a kinder prosperity. So the obvious thing to say after all those years is we need to start changing a few rules. We don't need to wait for somebody else to tell us how it doesn't fit in with the bylaw, or how it doesn't fit in, or the government haven't come up with a food strategy. I don't care about that. What could we do ourselves to change the rules? How could we, and what would we do, imagine, if we were to imagine a world where every neighbourhood was incredible, where we were sharing and feeding each other, where the citizens in that neighbourhood had got enough trust and enough credibility that they were round the table of decision making when it came to talking about climate crisis, because they're not. At the moment, the last people that anybody talks to about it is the people that are actually suffering on the ground in some of our most deprived neighbourhoods. Imagine if we then didn't have to rely on asking for permission to grow food in our public realm, but actually did it as of right. That would make a huge difference. It's not the sexiest thing in the entire world, but it would be a turnkey piece of legislation that would shift the dial in terms of the relationship between citizen and state and start to inspire people and make it easier, not for the Guardian readers, the Telegraph readers, the Times readers, and all those people who are going to buy themselves out of a problem, but for the people who really want our support with more wind under their wings so that they themselves can fly for their children. So what we did is we created a right to grow. These wonderful people, who knew? It didn't cost us anything. We've no bureaucracy, no money, no paid staff, nothing like that. But these wonderful, these chambers, these barristers in London, wrote us a piece of legislation called the Community Right to Grow on Public Realm. Totally fantastic. It's a radical piece, because the thing about the UK, land is power. So if you're actually going to do something, start with the land that your taxation pays for. Why is it you can only grow grass on it? Why can't you feed your communities from it? It's a no-brainer. So we created this piece of legislation, and if we get it through the law, then we will start to see things like this happening. We will shift the dial on local supply chains. We will inspire more people to become urban farmers. We will start to see more community farms. We will start to see more wildlife-friendly areas. All those things that you can actually see. Now, is this just in the wind? Is this just something that I've just made up and isn't going to go anywhere? Well, no, it's not, because funnily enough, it was debated in the House of Lords. The bill has been put forward as an amendment to the Levelling Up Bill. Nobody's been paid to do this. We're doing this absolutely on a shoestring, but we have cross-party support from Rosie Boycott to Barbara Young to Earl of Caithness. It's just gobsmacking that everybody is standing up in the Lords saying, this is a no-brainer. We need to move this. If we really push hard on that, we will get it through report stage, it will go back into the Commons, and then Michael Gove has to say to us why he thinks it's not a good idea for people to repurpose that public realm to nurture their communities in a food crisis. Well, we'll see what happens, but actually we're not even waiting for that, because the real power base is in local authorities. The real power base is what's happening already. The real power base is those private sector organisations that have got land that they could put into our pot and give to people as a right to grow on. Of course there has to be a relationship and a conversation. Of course this is about, well, I'll tell you what, I'll do all the growing if you will cover the insurance, local authority, private sector, or whatever it is, because that's what I can't do. We can all come to those conclusions if we have the conversation in the first place, and so far we haven't been having that conversation. But local authorities from Hull to Leeds to Liverpool and beyond are coming to us and saying, what motion can I move to make this happen? How am I going to kick this off? I mean, who would have thought what was going to happen? If you kiss enough frogs, you get to the princes. And it is happening, and not only is it happening at a local government level, not only have we got the NHS starting to be interested, but I'm desperately keen to talk to the private sector about this, because you are so far more far-sighted in terms of the need to press for change in a very short period of time, far more than some people at a national level are. The amazing thing is I tell this story, and all this lot, out of the blue, say, we really like that maypole, we'll come and dance around that with you. And what we've got here are national organisations from the traditional Worshipful Company of Gardeners to the Urban Revolution, which is the gathering of some northern universities, social farms and gardens, but people in Durham, people in Hull, people in Shropshire, across the piece, ready to start to demand a right to grow that would make it so much easier for people to do this, to call for justice at a grassroots level. So across age and income and culture and ability, we can nurture our communities ourselves. We can build healthier and happier and more connected lives. We can redefine what the food system looks like at a local level. We can start to see that there is a different future out there, and we have not waited for permission to arrive at it, but we've done one thing. We have believed in ourselves, and the power of small actions to shift the dial, to change the story, and build a world that's fit for our kids. Thank you.
That was amazing. Thank you. I have a lot of questions, but I guess one that made me think is your journey to this phase of your career, if you will. You used to be very much, if you will, within the power structure, right? You were involved. You were leader of the council.
I led a council, I chaired a health trust, I advised the government nationally, I was chair of the Forestry Commission. I did all that as a precursor to knowing how to do this.
Right, okay.
Which is just crack on and do it.
Yeah, well, you I think they say about the people in like the CIA, you went off the reservation in a sense, right? And were you? So my question is, were you always like are you now, or did you like have some like? I just can't imagine you causing this much disruption.
Was I always loud and gobby? Probably. No, I mean, the truth of the matter is, you know, I'm a single mum. I've got a kid. She's nearly 40. And for the past 30 years, I've been desperately concerned about her future. So the bottom line is what you're not going to do, you know. And stick to your message. Don't keep swapping. The trouble we've got at the moment is we keep swapping every year and year and year to a different thing that's a focus. Well, there's only one focus, which is the crisis on the planet and what we're going to do about it for the next generation. That's why I stick with it.
I guess one just other question, and I mean, that again occurred to me, is that you come across to me, and I'm sure anyone that's heard you, as what you might call a natural leader. And you mentioned in your presentation about how we seem to lack any leadership in any of the actual established institutions that are supposed to be looking after agendas like yours, of course, many others. This is getting into sort of, areas not in our expertise, but any theories as to why we don't actually have leaders in leadership?
Well, I think that, I mean, for example, if you look at Whitehall, if you've ever buzzed around Whitehall, you can just see the bubble. It just doesn't relate to anything outside the bubble. So there is this kind of like self-fulfilling belief that lives within a system that's perfectly all right, that can buy itself out of a problem, that's been brought up in schools, that teach you self-belief, that's gone to universities, that are elitist and blah, blah, blah. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The really great thing is we are starting to wake up and there's some brilliant things going on where, like at Gateshead, you know, people are investing in the next generation to be thinkers, to be challengers, but to be positive at the same time. And I've been talking to some people on climate change. There's a wonderful young woman called Clover Hogan. I don't know if anybody knows her, but she's a fantastic American. She lives in this country, and she is working through programs with young people to bring back their self-belief and know how they can speak truth to power. And that is something that I think is happening at the grassroots level, but actually there is a reason why a very small percentage of people control a very large majority. It's just that it suits the status quo. So that's why we've got to kind of work together, collaborate, as you do brilliantly in the Northeast, so that we can start to create that proof of concept that brings confidence.
Pam, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Awesome.